at age 16. And when I held Alex, I said, when you want Alex, you have to come and get him. I'll raise him. But I'm a Bible college professor. I'm an elder of a church. Imagine how my kids could hate the church. Because they're around it all the time. Familiarity breeds contempt. I don't want them to be contemptuous. I want them to love the church. And I held Alex and I said, when you want Alex, you have to come and get him. And he did at age 16. 16, that's a really interesting age. I wondered when it was going to happen, because I knew it was going to. But 16 and 17, the junior and senior year of high school, were the most spiritually significant years of my kids' lives. It was really fascinating to watch that. I don't know if it's because of our family, because we were a Christian family, because they just kind of grew up in the church, but God came knocking, and every one of them opened the door and said, okay, I'll do something. I don't know exactly what it's going to be just yet, but I'll do something. So all of them are at Ozark Christian College. On some level, Audrey graduated from Missouri State, Southern State University, because you got a full ride scholarship there. Took classes at Ozark, and they're all looking at how they're going to be involved with the church. So here's what I want you to say to parents, is that you keep asking God, come and get my child. Come and get him. Because they're a living stone as a Christian, and they fit into the church. And God knows where they fit. You don't know where they fit. He hasn't given you that premonition. You know a little bit about how they're wired, but God knows how to plug them in so the whole wall will light up for him. And that's what you want. You want your kids to have meaningfulness. And when your kids get involved in church ministries, you want them to like it. You want them to enjoy that. So that's going to be a pretty cool experience for them. And so now you've got this idea of returning God's children to him. So the purpose of parenting, as you look at this, parenting is the prime vehicle through which children are socialized, prepared for their future, and brought into a relationship with God. So I won't go too much into that except to say this. I believe, for the most part, that if you have a bratty child, you have parents who let them get away with it. If you have a bratty child, I mean, I've seen kids tell their parents off. And mom and dad go, oh, I don't want you to be mad at me. No, there are some things that you have to win the battle on, and a bad attitude is one of them. So let me tell you this. This is Peter Buckland rule number 1 with parenting. You follow this rule and you'll be okay. You must capture the heart of your child every day. To have a parenting relationship, you must capture the heart of your child. If you don't capture the heart of your child, somebody else will. Somebody else will, because the heart's up for grabs every day. Now, the more that you capture the heart of your child, the more that your child will let you capture the heart. But if your child is not connected to you, your child will not obey you. If your child is not emotionally connected, your child will not obey you. And every kid in here knows this. When you get mad at mom or dad, what do? You get back at them by doing something they don't like. That's what we did. Mom wanted us to do the dishes. We were mad. Absolutely not. I'm not doing the dishes. I'm going to see how far I can push this. And you can tell by the tone of your mother's voice how close she is to killing you. Every child understands, I can play with you, I can push you, but there's this little click in there that I don't want to see the outcome from there. But moms are really, really nice. Dads are a little more unpredictable. You're not really sure, because they'll be a little more quiet, and then all of a sudden they lunge at you. It's like, oh my goodness, that was like, I didn't see that one coming. I had a parent once say to me, Peter, I have learned not to count, because I tell parents, do not count. Don't count 1, don't count 2, don't count 3, because you teach your children to ignore you. Counting means ignoring. I can ignore you until you get to 2 7/8 and a half when you're yelling at me. Because one of the rules of parenting is never yell at your kids, because nobody likes to be yelled at. But the problem is that some of our parenting techniques actually cause us to become angry, which then fosters irresponsibility in our children, because they don't have to obey us yet. And so what I wanted to do was tell my kids, when I tell you something, it means I want you to do it. And if I think that you need a reminder, I'll give it to you, but I don't want to tell you twice. This is very male. And I thought, I'm a guy, I get to raise you because I'm a male. Now, Vanna will remind them 45 times. My wife loves our kids, and she doesn't want them to be mad at her. And I look at my kids and go, oh, there are times you should be mad at me, because I'm not very happy with you. And I will win this battle. And we'll talk a little bit about those battles that you have to win. But one of those is your attitude. And one of those is compliance. When something really needs to be done, it really does need to be done. And what kids learn is this. when God says, I don't want you to sin this way, and we look at him and go, I can ignore you. Do you know what we do? Is that we get really good at disobedience. Really good at disobedience. And I get really concerned with Christian parents who let their children get away with ignoring them because you're an authority figure, and that means that children can ignore the Bible also. Because it's an authority figure. And it just transfers right on over. And so when children ignore the authority figure, this is my ultimate analogy with my college students. You die, you stand before the judgment seat of God, and God says, why did you do this? And the students say, well, because I just really didn't think you were serious. I didn't think you were serious. Well, you have decided that you're going to spend an eternity in hell because of that. And then that student looks at God and says, but I'll do it now. And God says, it's too late. It's too late. I don't want a police officer teaching my kids that no means no and yes means yes. I don't want another person where it costs them to have to teach them something that I really want them to learn in college. So here's another little Peter Buckland rule number 2 for the day for you. Some mistakes are $5 mistakes. Some mistakes are $50 mistakes. Some mistakes are $500 mistakes. Some mistakes are $5,000. Some are $50,000. Some are $500,000. Some are $5 million. I want the smallest mistakes made in the family to avoid a bigger mistake. It's a secret to raising responsible kids. You make your mistakes in front of me, and I'm going to help you to learn how not to make those mistakes. Do you know anybody that has made a $50,000 mistake in their life or a $5 million mistake and wish that they could go back and turn the clock back, that they wouldn't have ever done that because they were irresponsible in their living of their life? I don't want the law to teach my kids something that I want to teach them within the family when they can recover more easily. So some of what we're talking about here now is how do you then work cooperatively with your kids to do that. Then I put down here, I'm going to get my glasses on. It is the design of God that parents be the first and foremost influence in the lives of children. Let me just tell you this, moms and dads. You are always super important to them. Always. You are never not important to them. However, they add other relationships. Mom and dad are at the bottom of this, and then the first level is other adults like coaches and teachers in elementary school. And then when they move on into adolescence, they add their friends on top of that. And ultimately, they're going to add their dating partner on the top of that. But what I want you to know is that you are always at the bottom, because we just finished a little divorce thing this morning. If you divorce, your kids all go down the tankers. You might not think you're important, but you are super important. And the number one gift that responsible parents give to their children is the gift of each other in a good marriage. And everybody in research knows that when the marriage is good, then children are healthier. The environment in which they live in, that's going to really help them to grow and to develop. So you've got these aspects then of parenting: ministry of reconciliation, moral training, and interdependence training. And then I put common components of parenting: Holy Spirit, knowledge, ability, techniques, goals, wisdom of parenting. Parenting is not a system, but it is a relationship. On page number 3. Page number 3. So those are some just basic ideas of parenting. Page number 3, you've got major functions of the family, children's needs, and hallmark of a family that teaches values. So I want to go through the hallmark of a family that teaches values. Number 1, a husband and a wife share a consensus of important values. You're getting the buy-in with your kids. You're getting the buy-in. And so you have to tell them the rationale. You have to tell them why. Why is this going to be a really good thing? Now let me see if I've got it in here. Let me have you on one of these little blank pieces of paper, one of these little blank sections. Let me give you some steps of discipline, and then some of you have kids here, and I would like for you guys to talk about what you think about this. Step number 1, when you're looking at the sharing of values, when you're working with your children, step number 1 is to identify what the behavior needs to be. Identify what the behavior needs to be. And call it what it is. Is it appropriate? Is it inappropriate? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Is it encouraging? Is it annoying? So the first level, when you're working on finding a consensus of values that you and your children agree on, is that you identify the actual behavior. Now, from a disciplinary standpoint, step number 2 is identify why the behavior is inappropriate or sinful or bad. So somebody does something that they shouldn't be doing, and you have to decide what it is. Is it inappropriate? Is it really wrong, sinful? Is it just kind of bad that's going on? Because sometimes kids don't know. Kids don't know. We're talking about different kinds of language in our family, and we have a pretty clean series of language within our family. But we want our kids to understand that the world doesn't have as clean of language as what we do. And so we have swearing, which is what we're not supposed to do. We told them that those are the really bad words. We have kind of cussing, which is like right underneath that, but is not really sinful, but is really kind of makes us really uncomfortable. And then we have kind of coarse language that kind of borderlines on kind of making fun of stuff that we really shouldn't be making fun of. And then we have regular language. So when our kids would come home and they would say something or they would do something, we would say, that's this kind of language. And remember, the Buckland family is not like other families. This is why we don't say that language, that word. So I want to give you just a little illustration, but I don't want to be offensive about it, so get ready to not be offended. This is really funny. In our family, we tell our kids that they are able to ask any question they want to at the dinner table. That is just a rule, because we would eat a meal while our kids were growing up once a day at the dinner table as much as possible. And that was our time to get together to talk about the day. Austin, when he was about 9 years old, said, "Daddy, is this a bad word?" And he just looked at me. And I said, "Yes, it is." Then he asked, "What is it?" This is in front of God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and our whole family. And I looked at him and I said, "You know, that is one of the worst words that you can use on somebody. But you're 9. And I want you to know that I will tell you what that word is, because I always have this little talk with them down Rangeline when they get into puberty, if you know what I mean. We have our sex talk, and I stop at all of the lights, and Rangeline takes about a half an hour to go all the way down. It's our busiest street, and you know, you don't ever have, I'm going to just look at you, you don't ever have a conversation like that, you know, staring at one of the kids. They just get really nervous about that. So you want to, you know, just look casual when you're having a super private conversation. I said, I will tell you in just a little bit, but you have to trust me that that is one of the worst words that you can say. And he said, "Daddy, I really want to know what that word is." And I looked at him and said, "I know you do, but I'm not going to tell you what that means. Not what it means. I'm not going to say the word, and I'm not going to tell you what it means. But I will tell you what it means and why we don't say it. You just have to trust me." And so he looked at me and he screwed up his face and he went, "Is this a bad word?" No, that's not a bad word. Is this a bad word? No, that's not a bad word. Is this a bad word? No. This is a good word, right, Dad? Yes. But this is a bad word, right, Dad? This is a bad word. Yes. So I shouldn't be saying this, right? No, you shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say this word at all. No, stop that. You should not be saying that word. As far as I know, he didn't say that. Now, we have been growing up with this, I'll tell you. Well, about 2 years later, we had our Rangeline conversation. And his eyes just went when I told him that word and what it meant and why we don't say it. And the fact that we are sanctifying and making holy our lives, and that word takes something beautiful and it wrecks it. I said, that's why we don't say that word. It's because it wrecks something that God wanted to make holy and beautiful. And he just went, okay. And as far as I know, they don't say those words. But I want you to know this. Whatever your children cannot talk to you about, they will do. They will do. You have to talk about everything. It's the hardest thing about being a parent. Whatever you will not talk to your kids about, they will struggle with. Just the rule. And so when you're looking at this here, you know, with this idea of sharing important values, you're in step number 2, which is like, why is it wrong? Why? I mean, kids need to know that. You need to just tell them. Sometimes it's just wrong because it's not your family. You have a right as mom and dad to say, that's not what we do. That's not what we stand for. It doesn't matter if anybody else does or doesn't do it. This is us. This is the culture of Christ for us. It doesn't mean that everybody who does something else is wrong. It just means this is the way we express our faith. And we can talk about it, but it's a pretty firm boundary that we have that. So if you've got a child that is No, let's just say we're watching a show that shouldn't watch. And you walk in and say, I need you to turn off the television set. You want them to be responsible. They're watching something from MTV, or they're watching, oh, I don't know, Jersey Women Gone Wild or something, Jersey Mothers doing crazy things. And you're looking at that going, we also had a rule, is if there were 3 cuss words that a television show would have, you'd have to turn the show off. It's like, we don't want to listen to that. I understand 1. 2 is a little offensive. 3, done. That's it. We're not watching a show that assaults us with those words we don't say. Why do I want to just sit there and do that? And so we just said to our kids, no, you can't do that. And so let's just say that's going on. You walk in, they're watching the show because they didn't know that you were paying attention, and they want to see it anyway. And you have this conversation. You know, that's a show that is not one that I want you to see right now, because of age or something. And you just say, it's not the right kind of language, not right kind of lifestyle. And they just look at you. So what you have to do then, under number 3, is give them the time to do the right thing. You give them the time to do the right thing. And you give them the positive and negative consequences for their choice. Give them the positive and negative consequences. Now here's where you and I fall apart. Now every kid in here, your ears ought to perk up, because this is really cool. You ought to be able to do more things when you do the right things. You ought to do more things when you do the right things, because you're trustworthy. But the problem is kids don't know what the right things are to do, because moms and dads are just telling them to stop doing things, not doing the right things. And so what you want to do now is you want to do the right things. And so you just tell your kids, you can turn that television show off, or you can keep watching television and change the channel. Or, if you don't want to do that, you're not going to be able to watch TV for the rest of the day. You just have to figure out, what are you going to tell your kids, both positive and negative? There's a positive for obeying. There's a positive for complying. You get to have more freedom. You get to keep making choices. You get to keep watching television.